Death is the last thing on anyone's mind when the lights go up and the crowd roars. But what happens when the stage becomes the final curtain call? Tonight, we're diving into the most jaw-dropping, chilling, and yes, bizarre stories of musicians who literally died mid-song, right in front of their fans. What does it feel like when reality smashes into the fantasy of live music? Buckle up, because some of these tales will leave you wondering if the show really ever ends. Dimebag Darrell. If you want to talk about the show must go on turning into tragedy, Dimebag Darrell's story is the ultimate gut punch. On December 8, 2004, at the Alrosa Villa nightclub in Columbus, Ohio, the legendary metal guitarist took the stage with Damage Plan, barely a few bars into their opening number. Suddenly, a deranged fan stormed the stage and shot Dimebag at point-blank range. It was mayhem. The crowd froze, thinking it was some twisted part of the act, until the nightmare became real. The shooter, obsessed and blaming Dimebag for Pantera's breakup, didn't just take down a rock star, he unleashed chaos, leaving 3 others dead before police ended the rampage. Dimebag wasn't just another guitarist. He was a force of nature, a riff machine who redefined metal. His wild beard and wilder solos made him a hero, but on that stage, all the energy in the room drained in a heartbeat. Even now, the metal world feels that echo. It's a harsh reminder that sometimes darkness doesn't wait until the encore. Tai Longley, you know the saying, playing with fire? For Tai Longley, guitarist for Great White, those words turned into tragedy. On February 20th, 2003, the band was barely into their first song at the Station nightclub in Rhode Island when their infamous pyrotechnic display set the stage and then the club ablaze. Flames ripped through the building faster than anyone could believe. Smoke, panic, chaos. 100 people lost their lives that night, and Tai Longley was among them. What's chilling is that some say Tai had actually escaped the fire, but either turned back to grab his gear or help others. No one really knows. The truth is, he never made it out alive. It's one of the deadliest nightclub disasters in American history, but for the people there, it's a memory scorched into their souls. Tai was all energy on stage, living for the music, and in the end, his last moments were exactly where he loved to be, just not how anyone could have imagined. Mark Sandman. Imagine the cool, smoky haze of a European festival stage, the hypnotic groove of morphine winding through the night. That's where Mark Sandman, frontman and low-end genius, spent his final moments. On July 3, 1999, in Palestrina, Italy, Morphine was mid-song when Mark suddenly slumped over, collapsing in front of the crowd. For a split second, nobody moved. It was so out of character, it almost seemed like performance art. But the reality was brutal. Sandman suffered a heart attack and died before he could even be moved off stage. The man who invented the 2-string slide bass, whose deep baritone voice made pain sound beautiful, was gone. Albums like Cure for Pain and Yes became instant cult classics, and Sandman's mystique only deepened. He was the kind of frontman who could command a stage without ever raising his voice, a master of minimalism, who left in the middle of the music he loved most. Harvey. Picture this, Wales, 1972, the blues rock band Stone the Crows is tearing it up. Guitarist Les Harvey, just 27, leans in to sing, grabs the microphone, and in an instant, 2,300 volts of electricity surge through his body. The mic wasn't grounded. Before the crowd can process what's happening, Harvey collapses, dead on stage. Some fans, paralyzed by shock, thought it was a prank, but the horror was real, and so was the loss. Les Harvey was a rising star with a signature gritty style, the driving force behind Stone the Crow's passionate sound. His death sent shockwaves through the music industry and sparked huge changes in concert safety standards. It's the kind of story that sounds like urban legend, until you realize every musician who grabs a mic today owes something to the lesson learned from that fatal moment. Sometimes, the risks of rock and roll aren't metaphorical. Sib Hashian, not every legend fades away in silence. Some literally go out on a high note. Sib Hashian, the unmistakable drummer behind Boston's arena rock anthems, was living proof. In 2017, Hashian was performing on the Legends of Rock cruise, banging out those iconic beats for a boatload of die-hard fans. Mid-set, right behind the kit, he collapsed. The show stopped. The crowd stood stunned. Medical help came, but it was too late. Sib's journey ended right there, with drumsticks in hand. Hashian's drumming powered hits like More Than a Feeling and Peace of Mind, tracks that are practically stitched into the fabric of classic rock radio. Decades after his peak, Sib was still out there delivering for fans, refusing to coast into retirement. If you're going to write your own ending, you might as well do it in front of a standing ovation. Nick Mensah. Here's the thing about metal. It never truly dies, but sometimes its heroes do. Nick Mensah, the thunderous drummer behind Megadeth's Golden Age, was mid-song with his jazz fusion band OHM at the Baked Potato Club in Los Angeles in 2016 when he suddenly collapsed behind the kit. The band kept playing for a beat, thinking it might be a gag, but when Nick didn't get up, reality hit. Mensah was more than just fast hands and double kicks. He brought precision and relentless energy to albums like Rust in Peace, and his passion for music never faded. Even after Megadeth, he kept searching for new sounds, new rhythms. That night, he was right where he belonged, locked in a groove, lost in the music, surrounded by fans. His passing was a shock to everyone who ever picked up a pair of drumsticks. Mike Scatcha. If you ever caught Mike Scatcha live, you know the guy was a blur of guitar, sweat, and head-banging ferocity. On December 22, 2012, at the Rail Club in Fort Worth, Texas, Scatcha was on stage, mid-set, shredding with rigor mortis at a birthday bash. Suddenly, mid-song, he collapsed. The crowd paused, unsure if this was just part of his theatrical stage persona, but as the seconds ticked by, concern spread. Scatcha died of a heart attack right there, guitar still strapped on. He was known for his lightning-fast playing, especially with Ministry, where he helped invent the industrial metal sound. Offstage, he was humble and generous, a stark contrast to his stage intensity. His final moments, lost in the music, were pure Mike. If you want to know what it means to give everything to your craft, look no further. Bruce Hampton. A living legend in the jam band universe, Bruce Hampton spent his entire life blurring the lines between music, performance art, and the absurd. So when he collapsed center stage during the encore at his 70th birthday bash at Atlanta's Fox Theater in 2017, everyone, fans, friends, even his bandmates, thought it was a bit. After all, this was the man who'd made a career out of surreal, unexpected stage moments. But this time, it wasn't part of the show. Hampton died with the spotlight on him, surrounded by people he loved and musicians he'd mentored. The concert instantly became a memorial, a tribute to a truly unique spirit who lived and left the stage on his own terms. There's something poetic and a little bit wild about making your final exit while the band plays on. Country Dick Montana. Country Dick Montana wasn't your average frontman. He was a barroom legend, equal parts chaos and charisma, bringing cowpunk attitude to every show. On November 8, 1995, in Whistler, Canada, he was behind the drums, cracking jokes, singing with that booming voice when he suddenly slumped over mid-song. Fans roared, assuming this was just another bit of wild, unpredictable stagecraft. But when he didn't get back up, reality hit hard. Montana died of a heart attack right there, never missing a beat until the end. His legacy? Making every night feel like the wildest party in town, and making sure no two shows were ever the same. For those in the audience that night, it was a bittersweet ending worthy of a true road warrior. Leonard Warren. Opera has always flirted with tragedy, but rarely does it spill into real life so dramatically. Leonard Warren, one of the greatest American baritones, was in the middle of Verdi's La Forza del Destino at the Metropolitan Opera in 1960 when he collapsed mid-aria. The audience sat in stunned silence. This wasn't acting, it was the end of a legendary voice, right before their eyes. Warren's death sent shockwaves through the classical world. His powerful, velvet-rich baritone had carried him to the peak of opera royalty, and his live performances were the stuff of legend. To this day, opera buffs talk about that fateful night, the ultimate reminder that, for all the spectacle and rehearsal, nothing is guaranteed when the curtain goes up. David Olney, imagine a songwriter so seasoned, so poised, that even his final moments on stage are quiet, dignified, and unforgettable. That's exactly what happened to David Olney, the folk troubadour's troubadour, during the 30A Songwriters Festival in Florida in 2020. Olney was in the middle of a song, surrounded by friends and fans, when he paused, uttered a soft, "I'm sorry," and simply slumped over, guitar still in hand. At first, the other musicians in the crowd thought he was taking a dramatic pause, but it soon became heartbreakingly clear. Olney had suffered a fatal heart attack mid-song. No theatrics, no warning, just a gentle exit, as poetic and understated as the music he'd spent a lifetime creating. His passing was a gut punch for the folk community, but also a weirdly fitting final bow for a songwriter who never cared for the spotlight, only the song. Mick Shaughnessy. Mick Shaughnessy might not be a household name, but in the jazz and swing circles of Britain, he was the voice everyone wanted at their late-night sessions. In 2008, while performing at the Birmingham Jazz Festival, Shaughnessy was in his element, crooning, swinging, charming the crowd with every note. Then, in the middle of his set, he collapsed on stage, microphone in hand. For a moment, the audience thought it was a bit of showmanship, but the truth was far more final. Shaughnessy had suffered a massive heart attack, dying right there in front of fans who came for a good time, never expecting tragedy. There's something strangely poetic about a jazz man taking his final curtain call in a haze of blue notes and applause. Proof that, for some, the stage really is home until the very end. Johnny Guitar Watson. Johnny Guitar Watson lived larger than life. His stage persona, his style, even the way he played his instrument screamed superstar. In 1996, Watson was on stage in Yokohama, Japan, giving fans a taste of his electric, soulful sound. Suddenly, mid-song, he collapsed, his guitar still slung across his body like a badge of honor. Watson was pronounced dead shortly after, but his legend only grew. This was a man who inspired everyone from Frank Zappa to Etta James, whose fingers danced across strings like they were on fire. That he died mid-performance feels almost right for someone whose life was one long improvisational jam. If you're going to go out, do it like Johnny. Leave your audience both stunned and awestruck. Randy Biscuit Turner. Austin, Texas is legendary for its weirdness, and Randy Biscuit Turner was the king of its punk underground. Explosive, unpredictable, and as flamboyant as his city's reputation, Turner gave every show everything he had. In 2005, during a gig with Cargo Cult, Turner collapsed and died mid-song, a microphone still gripped in his hand. Fans thought for a second that this was just more stage madness from a guy who thrived on shock and spectacle. But Turner's wild ride ended right there, in the middle of the music, surrounded by the friends and strangers who made up his chaotic punk family. If rock and roll is about living fast and burning out, then Turner's story is a cautionary tale with a killer soundtrack. So, what do you make of this list? Heroes who left it all on the stage, sometimes literally. Does it change the way you see live music, or do you think the risk just adds to the magic? Drop your wildest concert story in the comments, and don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you never miss the real stories behind the music. Because as you've just seen, sometimes the encore is closer than you think.